think we're live on YouTube, but it'll soon start to display and stream very shortly. So welcome to everybody who's a little bit early. Thank you very much for your love and support as always. We're definitely going to be looking after you today with another edition of the Empower Hour. It's very, very soon. Just going to waiting for it to kick off, and then we're live with YouTube. And there we have it. So welcome everybody. This evening it is the 21st of July 2020. I can't believe this is the Empower Hours show, and we are on episode 58. What an amazing, colossal achievement for all of our clients and the team, Abstract PR, Salam Radio, .co.uk. I'm so proud to be the host of this particular show, and we have been enjoying such loving support and generosity with your likes and comments on the YouTube channel. Thank you very much for continuing in the same vein. This is the Empower Hour show, as you know, and our main focus for the Empower Hour show 100% is always to give you an hour of deep conversation with a celebrity, with a local business person, with a national, international business person, or somebody who's a thought leader. And today we're definitely not going to disappoint in any way. We have with us this evening, you can see him just there next to me. It is Bhavin Bhatt, who is a UK award-winning actor, theatre specialist, and I'm going to continue. I can go on and on and on, but my real understanding for him to be here today is how brilliant his mind, his heart, and his focus is in life, and how helpful he's been to all his supporting friends around him. So without further ado, may I introduce Bhavin Bhatt. Hi, Bhavin.
Hi, thank you.
Oh, wow. Thank you very much for being here with us tonight.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure.
It's genuinely our pleasure as well. So we're going to have a tremendous time together, as all of the audience knows today. This particular episode is, as always, supported and sponsored by salamradio.co.uk. And during this current pandemic period, we're off air from the live shows, and that's why we're shooting live from YouTube Live on my own channel, which is the Sukhi Wahiwala official content channel on YouTube. But please, in future, support and download the Salam Radio application, which is salamradio.co.uk. You can go straight on there, watch it live, or download it. Bav, I think I've earned the right to call you Bav, if it's okay with yourself.
Yeah.
What an absolute pleasure. Now, we met some time ago, about 2 years ago, with one of my other actual introduced guests on the Empower show, whose name was Roshni Ladva. And she had an event and a show where it was about fashion. And we met there because I was one of the judges, but you were supporting one of the other speakers and judges that day. Can you remember that far back?
Yes, I can. Yeah. It was a great show, and yeah, that's when we first met. I remember we were just standing watching I think it was like a panelist of questions, and and people telling their journeys and stuff, and we just got talking.
That's exactly right. And what struck me straight away, was the fact that at such a young age, and I think in that sort of time, you must have been about 27, 28 years old. So, you're quite a young fellow yourself, and I'm sure so am I.
Mm.
But the reality is, we were standing and talking, but your articulation, and most importantly, your resonant balance within yourself, even as an actor, not being somebody else, was really. It tends to be quite a hard thing when you try to be yourself and you're an award-winning actor. So what actually happened is that when I connected with yourself, I really got to speak to Bhavin, and it was really spectacular. It was something special. You had wisdom just oozing out of you. So I thank you for that conversation.
Oh, that's really sweet of you. Thank you.
Totally welcome and honest as well. So let's get straight to it. You know the drill. Our Inspired Tribe is here following us today. Now, how we start with is we always spend a bit of time just to get to know you as an individual, Bhavin, if you don't mind. May I ask a couple of questions? Where were you born? Was it England? Was it out of town? Was it out of the country? Where were you born?
So I was born in Edmonton, North London. And it was, as some people may know, Edmonton is a bit of a rough area and stuff, but it was a great kind of upbringing there. My primary school was just opposite my house, so it was literally, come out of bed quickly, have my breakfast, and then just cross the road, and I'm there, which was great.
I've got to say, I've got to cheat there a little bit. I had a very, very identical system when I was at home.
Really?
My secondary school, I had got myself in a position. I'm born from Peterborough in the UK, in Cambridgeshire, and I was in the UK, and I had acceptance at the Deacon School, which was quite an aristocratic sort of school, and my sisters, my elder siblings, were there as well. And me being me, no, I wanted to go to Jack Hunt School, which is right in my back garden. And our house was there, and my wall touched the back of the school. And I even can remember specifically even asking my father, my dad, and my mum to say, can we just not get a gate that we can put in the back garden? So I can just...
You can just stroll in late. It's fine. Teachers wouldn't know.
Well, I'm going to let you a little secret, actually. This is for everybody, just to keep it quiet. I know I'm just talking just between you and me, and everyone's not listening at all. But the reality was that I used to hear the pip, the bell, at 9 o'clock, for example. It was actually earlier than that. It was about 8:30. We used to hear the pip, and I used to leave my house and walk around and get into my classroom before the late bell, if you understand.
Yeah, that's clever.
And I'm very certain you did something very similar. I'm very certain.
Well, I did, yeah. I think my parents have a lot more stories than I can remember about me, it was just like, silly things like, crossing the road, like, having to go to school, not really realizing that people have to, travel, go on the bus or whatever. I had the luxury of that.
So are you, you were obviously North London, so are you are you an only child, or are you one of a couple or three?
No, I've got one older brother. Yeah, he's 6 years older.
Got it, 6 years older. And what sort of thing does he do?
So he's in cybersecurity. So very different from what I do.
Wow, very, very needed as well. Yes,
yeah.
I expect that. So a question to yourself, I mean, what kind of upbringing did you have? Because we get a bit close and personal and do this Empower Hour series. It's about empowerment. It's about really being honest and real. And the reason why, honestly, I really, truly, humbly wanted you on the show is because you just was so yourself, as opposed to being an alter character. So if you don't mind, let's get a little bit closer, if you don't mind, and just ask a few questions around what was it like growing up and what did your parents do?
Okay, so growing up in Edmonton, I guess it was quite different to what some people would consider, a Gujarati, British Asian person growing up in. So I grew up in a very kind of mixed community. It wasn't just Asian based or anything. And
Gujarati, sorry, beg your pardon, but Gujarati, just for the listeners who are non-Asian, because we have a following from all over the world in every continent. Gujarati is Gujarat, which is a place in India, North India, and in specific, it's a language as well. So it's a Gujarati community which is very strong in that North London area. Sorry, I do apologize.
Yeah.
Continue.
So yeah, as I explained, my school was just opposite and stuff. But I think sometimes I still managed to be late. And yeah, so it was, a very kind of fun kind of childhood. A lot of family holidays, a lot of, going out to celebrate, different achievements and just for special occasions. Dad was working as a forecourt manager in a garage, and mum was working in haulage. So a good kind of mix of environments there.
Wow. And so I'm going to ask the cardinal sin, if you don't mind. I'm going to say to yourself that you are an actor. You went into drama, but you also studied it. But we'll touch that a little bit later, if it's okay. Usually, what we have is it's a very simple process. We have a doctor the Asian families is a stigma. I know we know.
Yeah.
It's I suppose you could say it's a prerequisite, but it's also an unconscious bias. Every Asian family dreams of their children to become either a doctor, an accountant, a lawyer, or an engineer. So we call this
Yeah.
the Dale, a Dale principle. How did you weasel out of it?
Well, do you know what? What's really funny is growing up, like I didn't have that. My brother didn't have that. My parents have always kind of brought us up with, go after any career you want in your life.
Wow.
Do any job that you want. We're always here to guide you, but just don't waste that gift of life. So, I remember saying to them, I wanted to be an actor and this is the career I wanted to pursue. And their response was, great. Okay, what can we do to help? And, there was instances where they went to speak to my drama teachers in secondary school and, then had a close relationship with how to develop me, how to, nurture my skills, hone my skills, and how to go further. So, it does sadden me, when I hear from a lot of Asian people that, I wanted to be a singer or dancer or go into journalism, but I was told I can't do that and I have to stick to, doctor, lawyer, engineer and stuff. And, I have to admit, it is quite heartbreaking to hear.
Yes, it is, isn't it? I mean, that's actually very forward thinking. In the sense of not forward thinking, I do apologize because that sounds very derogatory, but that's very open-minded in the sense of we're talking about an era, I would suggest around the 90s. Is that right? So
Yeah.
being very supportive of your child. So if you don't mind, let's just ask a few questions around that thought process. How is it that your parents had this understanding of supporting you with whatever you wanted, in the creative arts environment?
I think watching they tend to watch not just the kind of Star Plus or B for You music and things like that. They watch a variety of programs, and they've also grown up coming from Africa to the UK in the 70s. So they've grown up with a mix of cultures and things, and I think that was quite key in my brother and I's upbringing. So I think that has a huge kind of role to play in the fact that they turned around and said, okay, what can we do to help? Like let's do this. Let's make it happen.
Support you. That
Yeah.
really makes sense. I mean, I assume they were from the East Africas as a continent and in sort of like the Tanzania, Kenya
That's right.
environment. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Tanzania, Mombasa. Yeah, Kenya. Yeah.
Right. The reason why I'm saying that is because I've had many a friend who are from there as well, and people who are genuinely called brothers of mine, and they've come from the background of the Africas as a whole. And what they found is that they grew up with this integration of everybody's one.
Yeah.
And they didn't really see religion as a faith, as a differentiator. It was actually a togetherness in such. So do you feel that some of your supportiveness to your journey comes from that side of foundational thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. They, there's stories that, they tell us about, having to go to villages to get resources or having people travel to help them. And it was never a case of, they can't help or they can't do this because of, religion or from where, they're from. It was always, accept the help, give help to whoever they are, regardless of, religion or their background. And that was, I think, so key in and kind of drilled into us growing up.
I love it. And so the question I've got for yourself is how did that affect you? Did you feel that you were equally as acceptant of everybody?
I think I think to some degree, yes. I mean, going to schools with multiple faiths, different cultures mixing and stuff. I don't think I've ever seen someone as, you're labeled this or this. But what was quite a shock to me is, how I was perceived by other people, and there was a time, in like secondary school where,
Mm.
racial slurs and things were said. And this was kind of my first ever time experiencing racism. And, and it was a shock to me because I was like, wow, I don't see people like this. Like how does everyone else, it took me a while to kind of understand that thinking.
That possibility of
Yeah.
differentiation of somebody else's model of the world. There's a
Yeah.
gentleman called Alfred Korzybski, and he wrote a book called Science and Sanity. And he says that the map itself is not the territory, meaning that every single human being has their own version
Mm.
independently of the world. And the world itself is the static part of life, and our brain is the actual liquid or the fluid part of the life. For
Yeah.
example, our version of the world is our unique version. If I held the cup, if a cup was facing with a cup handle to the left, I may see it as the left, you may see it on the right, but the cup hasn't changed. I
Yeah.
love I love this way of thinking. Thank you. And so just to ask another question around the upbringing and your journey so far, you mentioned a little bit of racial contention. Um, we've had a number of guests on here, and there was always some sort of racial contention in some way from then the host society. What era are we talking about, please?
So I guess this was when I was in secondary school. So from the early millennium, so about 99, 2000, that kind of era.
Right, so late 90s and early noughties, is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, wow. And so a question that arises to myself, do you feel that you were equally in that acceptance scenario? Do you feel that that equally worked in your advantage, or did it actually create some kind of a what we classify as a significant feeling or a real key point in your life that you shifted, an actual shift in your world?
Okay, so I would say it worked towards my advantage, because I used that to fuel, me, whether that was getting better grades in exams or going after my acting career. It kind of fueled me to push through as much as I wanted to. And I remember a specific moment, my first kind of, I guess, my amateur role was being cast in a school production of Bugsy Malone. And the audition came up. Again, I can't really explain. Something was in me that said, I'm really enjoying doing drama classes. And this is something I want to, go for. And, as children do, things just, get talked around the classroom. And I remember there was a distinctive moment where all of a sudden there were a lot of pupils that were saying, why is he going for that? He's never going to get that. Like, what, this can't happen to him, and, mixed in with that was, the racial slurs and stuff. And for me, being 12, 13, it was, again, something I can't explain, something that I still look back at and was like, how did the 12, 13-year-old me be able to say, ignore that? It's, let them say what they want. This is my piece of paper. These are the lines. I need to read them and I need to deliver them in that audition. And I did exactly that. And it was this weird out of body experience now looking back and it was all of a sudden, I got one of the main antagonist roles. And 24 hours later, I go to school, everyone finds out, everyone, wants to be your best friend. And,
Oh my
everyone
God.
wants to, be like, oh, I knew you would always get that. I knew it. You're going to be amazing in the show.
So sorry, just to clarify something there. So within 24 hours, the whole output or the aspect or the version of you amongst your friends completely changed, literally 180 degrees. So 1 minute it was like, why is he going for this? And logically amongst that was the racial contention, or the what we classify as the conditional and the conscious and unconscious biases that we have. For example, thinking that you're an Asian gentleman, why can you go for the lead role? Maybe it's Hamlet or whatever it was. And no, you're the wrong skin color, and those sort of things as children do. So 1 minute they were in this mindset, and when you actually landed the role due to your skill and this inner light that you seem to have found that seem to have said, no, okay, listen, look, cut that out and let me just get deadly focused and learn the lines and deliver at my best capacity? They all of a sudden became your friends. Is that right?
Yeah, well, it's that whole point of, when you're trying to be someone, no one wants to know you. When you start becoming someone, everyone wants to be your friend. All of a sudden, I was getting picked first for, football in PE and things like that. So it was really strange to kind of adjust to. But again, the 12, 13-year-old me was always like, okay, I've got X amount of time for rehearsals. That means I need to learn all of these lines. It was my first ever time kind of, learning lines and stuff. And that was my focus, like rehearsal, shows. I've got X amount of shows. I want to do the best in every show. I want to make the audience laugh or whatever my character was doing.
Wow. And I'm going to touch a little bit on being the best in the second half of the show. The best you can possibly be, because they're words that you're using a few times there. Do you feel that that particular time being on the stage and the support of the parents and actually, I suppose the question I ask you is, do you feel that you actually realize that there and then of being kind of unpopular to popular? Or is this in hindsight when you reflect back? Because I find you a very reflective individual.
Yeah, I am. I would say there was parts of me back then that was enjoying the attention, if I'm honest. And I mean, like, wow, everyone wants to, talk to me, and this is amazing. But then there was also a part of me is, how long is this going to last? Are these same people going to be talking to me once the shows are over and stuff? But now looking back at that, it's quite interesting to see that it never went to my ego, and it could have easily done so. And I guess that just has to relate back to the way like my parents brought us up, which was stay humble always, remember where you've come from.
That one.
Yeah.
I love it. That's just so beautiful. And I hope the audience is listening tonight, the Inspired Tribe. And if you've just tuned in with us, we are with the Bhavin Bhatt, who is an award-winning UK actor, and he's sharing with us. If you've joined us live, just scrub back a little bit on YouTube, rewind it, in other words, and just listen to the rest. Listen to the start of this. It's been absolutely power-packed already, to be honest. Bhavin, one more question. I just want to ask you around that sort of scenario. When you took this particular, you could say, defining moment of realization that all of a sudden I'm not popular to unpopular, understanding that undercurrent of racial, I suppose we can call it discrimination, difference. Did you find that your selected friends changed, and did they also change in race, gender, color, in the sense of, did all of a sudden the Asians still give you the same equality of strength or of popularity and oneness, or did that change a little bit?
See, I've always kept a very close knit of friends group, and I would say that those people never changed. They saw me as as Bhavin, the person in the classroom, and during lunch break and stuff. Never really, they never really thought anything of it. But it was interesting how being one of the only maybe 2 or 3 other brown children in the school, how their attitude kind of never really changed. I guess it was very strange, where it was very distant, which I still don't understand to today. But with everyone else, it was just somewhat normal, somewhat a bit augmented of you're amazing now and all of this stuff. And like I said, that was great. But at the same time, there was something there that was like, is this real, or is this just because of my work?
And that basically brings me to one final question before we move into a bit more detail about what the defining, what you did with it, is that the principle that I'm feeling here, and I'm sure you're sharing the same and the audience is thinking the same thing as well, that in essence, the close-knit friends saw you as you, didn't see you as a color. The people who weren't your friends all of a sudden became momentarily friends due to your popularity. And logically, the popularity came from without a doubt, your discipline, the gift that you were given, the ability to act and be present and shut things off and get completely focused. But if we move back a second and say that the Asian French, you said somehow there was a reticence, sort of like a distance somewhat. So the question would arise that I wonder what they were thinking. Were they thinking all of a sudden maybe, because with whether we bring this into light or not, but Asians themselves or people of color, which I absolutely hate using, but people of color in context of understanding, have a preempted understanding of what an Asian should be as well, right?
Yeah,
so
agree.
do you feel that also played a part in them staying away because they thought, hang on, he's kind of not one of us anymore? Is that making sense? Because culture, tribal connections are still very important within schools. You're still young and making friendships.
Yeah, I think possibly that must have, had a factor to do with it. I mean, it would be great to kind of, rewind back and get into the mindsets to see why that was. But I think definitely it was I guess it was the breaking of the norm. What I was doing wasn't considered, as we touched on before, doctor, engineer, all of those things. And, not to say there's anything wrong with going after those careers or anything, but I think it was the fact that I was breaking those norms. I was breaking those boundaries. I remember our canteen, it used to be, somewhat segregated, but it never was during, lunch, like, in the football field or in classrooms. But it used to be, the Asian couple of people would sit here, these people would sit here.
That's amazing.
And it was strange for me because I was like, I don't really feel like I can go and spend, my lunch talking to these guys, but I feel comfortable talking to this table who has got a variety of people. And it wasn't a conscious choice. It just happened. So I do think, some people might have seen that as, that Bhavin, he's a bit odd. He's not sticking to this or this or this. He's
not one of us.
He's not. Yeah, he's not. He's not uniformed in that sense.
Yeah, that's just brilliant. That actually you were attracted towards the mixed tables because of because of maybe the not just because of maybe the upbringing, but because you as an individual, the upbringing, and then the togetherness, the oneness that you've been brought into by your parents, and thus obviously your ancestral line and lineage from East Africa, Mombasa area. That's just brilliant to see that passing through, and I assume that's obviously something that's become an evident part of your character because of basically seeing everybody as one and not discriminative in any way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's again, it's just like a subconscious thought or something. I didn't. And that has kind of opened my eyes out, I guess, a lot more than other people in how I see the world and different cultures.
And with it being a defining moment, Bav, how did you actually take that as a positive thinking, or as a learning into the benefit realm of a positive benefit? How did you think that changed your consciousness? Because you're a very grounded individual, somebody who's kind of, maybe what I would suggest is somebody who thinks before they speak, just contemplates a few things. How do you think that moment, that defining moment of standing on the stage, being selected, assisted you within the confidence? This is about the empowerment element. How did you get past that moment?
Well, I think it was, my drama teachers. There were a lot of conversations, I had with my drama teachers, being, them telling me, it's, if you're serious about this career, you need to know, the good side and the bad side, and you need to know, where, how you will be perceived out there. And I have to give them credit for that, having those really difficult conversations with my parents as well, saying that it's not going to be an easy ride for him, but if he's strong here and with our backing, he will get through it. So I think that was always driving me. Even doing those shows was a constant drive of I felt weight on my shoulders, that I was representing people who felt that they could never do something because of the way that, you know, comments had been translated to them.
So actually, sorry to disturb you there, but the feeling that I'm getting is that you were actually using what other people could have taken as a negative contention and turned into a depression of some kind, was actually propelling you. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it still does. You know, you have to, the way I see it is anything negative like that, you know, just say, okay, fine, whatever, accept it. It's, you know, this is easier said than done. But if you can just have that positive mindset of, I'm going to use this as fuel to push me through to that next goal or drive me through to get closer to it, you're flying.
Amazing. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm really loving this conversation, and I hope the audience is loving it as well. But we're going to get a little bit closer with your current now as well in a moment. But we've just hit the halfway through. I told you it'd go really quickly. We've only had what
Wow.
deemed like a couple of questions. Is that right?
Yeah. It's crazy.
If anybody's joined us, this is in Power Hour show. It is episode 58 with Bhavin Bhatt, who is an award-winning UK British actor, and his expertise and field, you know, goes from theatre all the way through to actually being in acting film roles. And if you're really interested in understanding how you can turn a slight negative racial slur or should I say an expectancy, and a conscious or an unconscious bias of expecting you to be a specific way, to conform in a specific way, if you can turn that into a positive, you know what, rewind please to the start of this interview. You are going to absolutely love the conversations, these gems and pearls that have been coming from Bhavin's mouth. So back to Bhav, thank you very much. We are in the second half now, and I'd just like to talk a little bit about your current now. With your defining moment in your life where you face that racial contention. So the question I ask yourself is, have you found, or do you feel that that's actually kind of still a reality today in the 2020s?
Right. Racism is still here. You know, it's just people are now more aware. You know, everything is now being filmed. You know, it's so easy to take pictures and film, you know, from a mobile phone. So I think there's a lot of racism, a lot of I guess the word is underlying kind of racism as well.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Which all needs to be addressed, and you know, all of it needs to come out. We all need to be more conscious and, you know, start talking about things a lot more. I feel like racism is always a topic that, you know, we as a society we touch on, and then we're too afraid to kind of explore it deeply, so we back away. But I think in the current climate we're in, everyone's talking a lot more, so there is strive forward.
So just to clarify something, where in the acting career that you move forward into, you've obviously very, very well achieved. The race is still a contention even today in 2020. And what was beautifully said there was the underlying current, the underlying thought, which we classify sometimes as conscious or unconscious biases, the framework, the stereotypical view, the boxing of somebody. Do you feel that it is a reality for every Asian actor or a person of BAME, which I don't agree with, you know, but I'm just going to write that again.
Yeah.
Anybody with any ethnic background, ethnic being another one that I don't agree with.
Yeah, I think there is, but there's, you know, I've had conversations with other Asian actors, and you know, they've said that they've not experienced anything before, but there are a lot of people that have. You know, I've experienced it, you know, throughout my career, and it's, you know, those underlying racism is very difficult to kind of tackle. You know, but there are conversations happening with the right people right now to see how can we tackle that. You know, wow. So there's examples of going into a casting room and knowing that you've just been selected to attend, not really, the role is never going to go for you based on your skin color, but you've just been selected to be there, and you can pick up on those vibes. Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. And do you feel then sometimes that that's really, really important, a big point they've just pointed out there, that I suppose it's kind of like just ticking the box for diversity, having you in the room as an interview, as a person who's going for the casting. Um, that's a first for me. I didn't realize it was that prevalent. I mean, there's plenty of
Mm.
these. Do you really genuinely feel sometimes that can you sense it's a tick box activity before you've even walked into the room then?
Yeah, you can, and this is where it becomes so difficult, because it's, like I said, there's other actors out there, who have also felt the same way, and we're trying to articulate that. How can we get that across? Because saying it's a feeling, is, people can say people have feelings all the time. How can you, back that up? So, we're finding ways, but yes, that, it has unfortunately happened.
And do you find then, it's a very unfortunate situation, but the reality that, do you find you're typecast as well? If I can give you a frame, an example, myself, my wife, we regularly have these beautiful conversations around race and kind of stretching the boundaries of our mind and realizing where our own unconscious biases are ourselves. What do we think, we expect that we're going to be racially treated or indifferently treated, which 99% of the time it possibly is. And I've actually grown up, to be honest with yourself, facing none of it.
Mm.
I don't say that it's with every single Asian person, of course, or person of color. And I just find very grateful that I haven't had that journey. But the question I'm asking yourself is, do you find yourself being typecast? If I give you an example, there was conversation about 4 or 5 years ago when, let's just look at one of the most iconic roles to play was James Bond. And as we know, Daniel Craig is playing James Bond currently, and he's still got one more to come out, which is very recent, which has been delayed through to COVID. But there was a conversation around the possibilities of somebody of Idris Elba's caliber, good quality, high-end action hero, as well as a very competent actor. And there was a lot of social rumor, or murmur is a better way of saying it, sorry, that how can you have a black James Bond? Ian Fleming wrote this as a white person's role, for example. Do you feel that you've ever faced something of that sort of nature? Not being given the lead role of Hamlet himself, maybe because of color, or does that make sense?
I wouldn't say I've faced that directly in casting, but there have been times where, it's kind of flipped on itself. So, there was a project I did where the character's name didn't reflect my background, and I read for it, I got the part. They changed the name, they changed the complete background, because they were like, actually, everything we thought we wanted the character to be, you've just changed it, and this is what we want it to be. So there are beautiful moments, when that happens. But I guess when I was auditioning for drama schools, there was a very distinctive episode that happened where I was delivering my monologue, and the panelists decided to talk amongst themselves and snigger. And, then at the end of it, said to me, Bhavin, you do realize that, this is an acting institution, and we train actors to be, professional actors, to go out there and work in this industry. Do you believe you can do that? But in a very patronizing way.
Condescending way.
Yeah. And I responded, yes, I can. And one of the panelists turned around and said, well, I guess there's always, a role there for a corner shop owner or a terrorist.
Oh my God.
And I can't, I have to be careful with the words when, back then, because it was such a heartbreak. And like I said, there have been strides, forward, but there's such a long way to go.
And you yourself as an individual being typecast with something as narrow-minded as that, but on the same token being supported by the actual lead role has been changed as well. So there is light at the end of the tunnel, which
exactly
somehow, yes, that's right, would somehow in essence, you're you may not admit this, but you and all the other Asian actors and people of color who are actually acting in lead roles are kind of paving the way for the next generation, because each generation gets a little bit closer to that level of equality. So for that, I'd like to thank you on behalf of all of our audience as well, because to endure this kind of a typecast and then to keep going is just truly wonderful. There's a question that sits in my brain, if you don't mind. Do you feel that in film, you could say series, so TV series, TV, and theatre, that there are specific differences? Is it equally the same? Because the role casting is very similar, isn't it? You got to go through the casting.
Yeah, I mean, casting processes, differ from different projects, theatre and TV, but majority of it, is the same. Right now the norm is self tapes and Zoom, due to COVID.
Yes.
But there are times when you're told the first round is going to be self tapes, and then as you progress through the rounds, it will be face to face meetings and things like that, and that can vary. But my experience of theatre has always been kind of a face to face kind of audition.
Mm-hmm. I love it. And to take the conversation to a slightly different arena and direction, can you explain to us, I mean, what has been one of the most, and by no means I'm not asking you to pick, of course not, but what do you feel has been some of the most significant roles that have added to you? What roles have they been? And then please
That's a hard question. I would say,
well, let's change it to what you've enjoyed, if that's easier.
Well, I have enjoyed every project for various different reasons. I've done small commercials where I've enjoyed, how fast a whole team can work to get, a 30-second advert out in a 12-hour day to film. Some people might say 30 seconds, it's not that long, but to get every single shot for it to be perfect takes 12 hours of a day, sometimes even more. So, I would say to people, next time you watch an advert, just try and count all the different types of edits and, that's, happening from a fade in here to a fade out to a close up to this. And all of those things take skill. So, there's commercials that I've enjoyed because of the quick turnaround, all the way up to, doing the Kite Runner and, stepping into a huge antagonist role. And bringing such a beautifully horrific, if I can use both of those words together, character from a novel into a play, and then bringing that, alive on stage for 8 shows a week, 3 months, sometimes longer. It's difficult, and that's been one of, I guess, challenging, but also the most rewarding.
That's wow. I'm just going to ask one question before I go straight into the Kite Runner, because that's actually one of my agendas to talk about it, if you don't mind. Just so that if anybody here is a budding artist who wants to move into the realm of acting themselves, and we'll touch that in a moment, just to give them some heads up on what tips you could possibly give them. But you've been truly inspiring up until now to have shared your journey to where you are today. So thank you for that. The question I'm asking yourself is that you mentioned you fleeted over the fact of TV and commercials and stuff of that sort, which you've worked in quite considerably. But I'm afraid I can't let you skip over this, because I have a business background. So I understand how powerful language, poise, pace, and tonality makes, what difference it makes in actually the articulation or the assumptions and the digestion of the person listening. Now, working in a 30-second commercial, 12 hours worth of back work, but there is an art in the language delivery and being able to do that. I have noticed that you have a knack, and you've worked out a way of selling, in essence, without selling, which is what we talk about in the education realm. Please give us some understanding and say, how did you get to that space?
It's it's training. It's I don't believe training in one kind of form of acting is correct. I believe you need to broaden your horizons.
Wow.
And in theatre, your voice is so important. TV and film, it can be important, but it's also the stamina that comes with it. Both TV and film have 12, 16-hour days, if not longer, same as theatre. And when the camera is not on you and it's on your co-actor is relying on you to give a reaction or to deliver your line the same way you delivered it when the camera was on you, because they need to feed off of that energy. They need to feed off, listening to it that way. So you're still working. And same again, when the camera is on you, whether it's a close-up or, a medium shot, you need to be able to deliver that line for that specific shot. And directors, tell you, okay, so this is going to be the shot now. So you move in a slightly different way. But these, principles are so key and so important.
So I heard something there. So that tells me that you kind of go into character, and principally you stay in character the whole day, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Apart from when, something like, if it's quite an intense character, you don't really want to carry that weight and that energy around. So it's nice to kind of take that costume off, put your own clothes back on, and be Bhavin again. It's great, but it does, there are times when I've been like, I just want to carry on with the character a little bit, see what comes out. Just little kind of nuances, in something as simple as doing this.
Yeah,
can mean so many different things. Is that something that your character would do or wouldn't do? Would they do this or would they do this? Working out those nuances, and that's something I really enjoy as an actor, is exploring those different journeys.
So that means basically by understanding that principle of what the character is, by giving yourself a lengthy time or a time to seat in that character, kind of get to feel the soul. And
Yeah.
I suppose, am I right in saying that you're actually becoming the character, you're maturing in the character? So you're, as you said yourself, hand here, would the character do this? Would the character? Is this actually the questioning that you're asking yourself whilst you're doing this?
Constantly.
Wow.
Constantly. And I have a specific rehearsal kind of I guess a schedule or preps and methods that I do, that I carry through all roles. And it's working out those little things, because acting is reacting. Acting is portraying reality. So in reality, if you're to sit on a chair, do you do this? Do you cross your arms? Same way, you have to ask those questions about your character. What does your character do? What do they like? What do they dislike?
Acting is reacting. That is just beautiful. That's just knocked it out in the park. I'm telling you, that's a beautiful way of seeing it. I'm so excited by this. This is a brilliant. This is role play. This is, in essence, we get into role play when we go on stage. We go recon play when we're coming into the conversation like this. This is brilliant. So, can you give some tips? Come on, there's somebody out there who's going to be listening to this and thinking, I want him to give me some tips of keeping yourself in character for such a long period of time, and also then not getting lost in the character as well, so that you're accidentally taking it home. And how do you get in character, out of character? How do you hold that longevity? Please, if you don't mind sharing some wisdom.
So I guess with getting in and out of character, it's you have to remember this is a job. And like people who work in an office or whatever, they log off and they leave their kind of desk there, and they come home. On their journey home, they might listen to some music or whatever. And it's the same way. You need to understand that you don't always have to be the character. You need to learn how to switch it on and off. And all of these things can happen through training. There's so many different acting training systems out there and stuff. But I would always say to people is, you need to stay positive. You're going to get 100 auditions. You're going to get 100 rejections. You're going to go for 1,000 auditions. You'll get 5, 6, maybe 10 of those, or even less. But take it on board. There are times when I've gone to auditions and I've prepped. I felt this is perfect, and it's not gone my way. And there's times, vice versa. I felt I've prepped, but in my delivery, it's been terrible. But they've been like, no, that's it. That's what we're looking for. Yeah.
So do you find that when you've done an audition, and let's say you don't get it, because you're talking about relentlessness, and I love it, being relentless, you're just constantly at it. Now, Stallone, Sylvester Stallone, he said something very specific, that obviously 250 ways around Rocky as the boxer, him wanting to be the actual individual. And that's grit. That's what you're sharing there. But he said something else. He said that what he used to do was ask them, I suppose, why, and learn from that. So, for example, with yourself, if you don't get a role, would it be good practice? Would you advise anybody who's in this good practice to say, "Oh, thank you very much for considering me. Can you give me some pointers? Is there something specific that you were looking for, so that you could actually connect that with, if I'm correct in saying, the character role style?"
Absolutely, yeah. There's times when I've asked why, or even ask yourself why. Why didn't you get that role? And being honest with yourself is so important in this industry. And if it is, just because your prep wasn't on point, or your delivery wasn't, you froze in the moment. It happens to everyone. It's happened to me. It's okay, but be honest with yourself. Learn from those mistakes. And if it is receiving those, those points, make it constructive criticism. Don't be disheartened by it. Take it on board, learn from it, adapt from it, accept it, move on to better things.
Learn, adapt, accept, and move on. Wow.
Yeah.
Love it. So if anybody's heard that, you heard it here on the Empower Hour show with Bhavin. He said, learn, adapt, accept it, adapt it, and learn, move on. Thank you very much for those 4 quick tips. One of the things that I'd like to sort of ask all of our audience, and if you're watching this, do ask any questions, and we'll always go back to Bhavin. Will go back on live and actually respond to them, I'm very certain, on YouTube Live, onto the YouTube channel. But thank you for watching the Empower Hour show. This has been exactly what I wanted it to be, something really deep and special, with I could say, chest high in nuggets that have been dropped off, and I hope you've thoroughly enjoyed it. So I'm still nowhere, not towards the end yet. Don't worry, we're still got another 10 minutes yet, Pav. I know you're thinking it's going to be quick, but we're doing really well. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. One of the questions I'm going to ask yourself is, if you don't mind my saying, at this particular point within the interview, we tend to get a little bit deeper. The people who are the inspired tribe, the people who follow me around the globe, who watch the Empower Hour show, and as we know, it's supported by the Salam Radio system. They have the capacity to understand the next phases of life, if you understand where I'm coming from. So you are a deeply reflective individual. And of course, everyone would say that every actor is deeply reflective, but most of them are not. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, with reference to the film, the stage show you were talking about, the resilience that you were creating and delivering 8 shows a week, and for 3 months. How did you dig deep? How did you keep that energy up and that performance up? And did you feel that you were getting better, worse, or were they all the same? Because I'm sure you had days where you thought, "Oh God, that wasn't so good," or "This was amazing."
Absolutely. There are those days where I was feeling every single moment I was on stage. There were also days where I was like, what happened tonight? I wasn't there. I was saying my lines, but I was delivering everything like this, no feeling. And what constantly drives me is first of all, doing 8 shows a week is, some companies do more. 8 shows a week is Monday to Saturday, with sometimes you have 2 shows a day. So you have an afternoon show and an evening show, possibly about an hour, 2 hours in between the shows.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's the break. And, so you've just done a very intense emotional show, got 2 hours to reset yourself, and let's go again. And what drives me is the fact that every single audience is different. Every single member of that audience is new. They're watching this story and they're listening to this story for the first time. So I see it as my duty to give them their money's worth, to entertain them, to let them escape real life. Let them escape whatever, good, bad things, whatever they're experiencing. They're in the theater, they're in this sacred space. You're telling a story. Just deliver the story, but doing 8 shows a week for over 3 months does, it's hard touring around the UK, or, going to Dubai and coming back, doing those tours. It's hard. You're living out of a suitcase, and we're lucky where we live in a medium with technology where you can keep in touch with friends and family. But all of those, like Zoom and stuff, but all of those does have, it does really impact your work on stage, and you just have to stay in the moment. Keep yourself motivated.
Right. So there was something really important. Sorry to disturb you there, but there was something really important I need to recap there for the audience. The motivation side of things, but you said something really, really powerful there, which was basically realizing that you had to perform for somebody who'd seen that show for the very first time. And the sheer fact that even though the lines were the same and the people were the same and the order and the structure and process was the same, that you realized that that was a fresh brain, and they had come there for the immersement, for the art, for the love of theater. Yeah. And that you had to deliver that again. So that for me has really explained how a person could do this back to back, back to back, back to back, because of the fact that you're realizing it's a brand new audience and no one's judging last performance. In essence, if you'd not got it right, or you'd got something really well, that 2 hours you could hark back and reflect and deliver better. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. You can kind of sit back and be like, okay, was my prep right? Going into the show, did I do a correct vocal warm up? Did I do a correct physical warm up? If not, okay, I can do this again. So in that respect, I really do like a 2 show days, because you're tired at the end of it, but you're always on your toes for that whole day. It's show, break, show. And
that's time to think.
That's it.
Don't undo it in your brain, right?
Yeah, that's it. And I always believe you never know who's in the audience. You don't know if it's another cast member's family. I mean, there are times we share those informations, but you don't know, and you don't know if there's someone else from the industry there. So I always go with the mindset: just do the best. Don't overact, don't underact. Exactly the same as rehearsal. Feel that energy. Listen to the the audience. When you're standing in the wings, you can hear them rustling around, like and sometimes the odd phone going off and stuff, but tune in. As soon as you walk on stage, you're not you are your character, and this is your character's journey.
The authenticness. What pearls of wisdom. I can't believe how fast we're getting towards the end of this actual interview. I feel as I want another hour with you, but it just started. Does that make sense? Honestly, it's a blessing to have you here. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. This is the time of the show where we kind of ask you a little bit about your legacy. So in this legacy moment of your life, I mean, if I said to you that your epitaph was in front of you, and of course, you're a Hindu, so you don't believe in burial, you believe in cremation. No right and wrong to the world. It's just a very personal journey. My question to yourself is, if I started a sentence with your epitaph, what your legacy would be, and said, here is Bhavin Bhatt, the man who, what would it be? What would you like to be remembered? What's your legacy going to leave here on this earth?
I guess I would want that to say, Bhavin Bhatt, the man who broke the boundaries of inequalities in the acting industry.
Amazing. Amazing. So Bhavin Bhatt, the man who broke the inequalities in the acting industry. And the inequality could be vice versa. It could be anywhere, right?
Yeah.
Wow. That is a deep thought. This leads me to a question. You were touching on it earlier in the interview. What is your wisdom? If you were to leave one bit of wisdom with everybody in the audience today, what's the quote that really propels you, switches you on, activates you, gets you through a bad moment in life? Please share.
Right. So this quote, which I will share, but it's something I read very early on in my career, and it's something that's just stayed, throughout, and something I use, which is take every chance, drop every fear.
Wow. Take every chance and drop every fear. That's really deep. And meaning don't say no, get on with it. And
Yeah.
and your fear is going to be there, which is going to keep you acting. With acting, if you have to have fear, you have to have nervousness, although you're not really going to deliver. But drop it and get on with it. And
Yeah.
how significantly has this helped you in your journey?
Hugely. I mean, there's auditions that I've gone for, and huge projects that I've accepted, where I is this the right choice? Is it not? And then I snap back. Wait, go for it. Just drop the fear of failure or whatever, and trust in your ability and your team around you, and you'll do your best.
Amazing, Bhavin. Now, if everybody's listening, this is the Empower show, Bhavin Bhatt. It's been absolute a pleasure, and I think I'm going to request sometime and probably ask you to come back, if I may, at some stage, because we only just got touched on this situation. We've got a new program which we're going to be bringing to the airs very soon, which is called Wisdom Talks by Sukhi. And in those, we're going to go deeper into more of a wisdom philosophy type environment. And I'd love it if you came back and accepted an invitation there in due course. But I'd like to say on behalf of Salam Radio, myself, Sukhi Wahiwala, the host, and the Inspired Tribe, and everybody who's listening today, thank you very much for making this a very special, very deep episode 58 of the Empower Show. Thank you, Bhavin.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I've absolutely loved it. Thank you.
Amazing. If anybody wants to get hold of you, Bhavin, how would they do that?
So I am on Twitter and Instagram, and my handle is Bhavin B, so the letter B, official.
Bhavin B. So can you spell that's BHAVIN and then the B again and official? Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct.
And if it is it Twitter or Instagram or anything like that?
It's on Twitter and Instagram. Yeah.
Both.
That's
Twitter,
the same handle.
So you can find out more about yourself and communicate with you via there. Thank you very much for being on the show once again. And to everybody else who has been listening, this has been a mind-bogglingly brilliant, I believe, Empower Hour show. And I hope you thoroughly enjoyed it as much as we have. This is the platform this is the show that we bring you education, wisdom that can really be used in a form of practical essence as well. In your own lives. Remember, every Tuesday between 7 o'clock and 8 o'clock in the evening. And thank you once again, everybody, for tuning in onto this particular episode with Bhavin Bhatt. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you, everyone.